not easy for the Shah of Iran, fascinated by dreams of regional expansion, to see the dramatic progress in all fields taking place in Iraq. He feared a new wave of discontent and social unrest amongst the people of Iran, similar to that which had taken place during the era of Prime Minister Mossadegh. Mossadegh, an aging and ill Prime Minister, used to hold his meetings and press conferences in bed. After the return of the Shah, he was arrested and taken to court. The Shah was a classic example of an oppressive dictator. He was overthrown. Khomeini, who inherited the kingdom, surpassed the Shah's rule by far. No wonder then that Tehran remained the scene of confrontations and riot. The Iranian opposition was ruthlessly suppressed. In Paris, a member of the opposition described to journalists, after escaping from Iran, the methods used by the so-called Revolutionary Guards.
They tied my hands to a torture bed and started flogging the inside of my feet with an electric wire from 7 p.m. till midnight. I lost consciousness 3 times. They tortured me in front of my wife and daughter and struck the latter on the head. Then they intensified the beating till I completely lost consciousness. I woke up in hospital, but they continued torturing me. When I returned to the interrogation room, I saw blood everywhere, on the door, the walls, the chairs. The state of the prisons has deteriorated dramatically since Khomeini came to power. The prisoners who would not speak despite torture were sent to remote places. I was sent to Mashhad, and during transfer, I was able to escape.
Khomeini was not satisfied with the extent of the damage he had inflicted upon his people. He tried to impose his regime upon Iraq and other neighboring Arab countries. He instigated a demonstration against the Iraqi embassy in Tehran, thinking this might be able to shake the government in Iraq. Hideous acts were to come. In July 1980, a top Iranian official declared that if the Iranian army marched towards Baghdad, no one could stop it. From north to south, in numerous locations at and behind the frontiers, more and more shelling and violations of the ground and airspace. September 4th, 1980. The Iranian artillery and phantom planes attack a number of Iraqi towns, as well as the oil installations of Nafta Hameh. Iraq finds itself in the face of an undeclared war, but enemy shelling continues, in spite of all warnings. On the 17th of September, 1980, Iran blocks Shah Arab to obstruct Iraqi navigation and oil exports. The Iraqi answer came the same day, decisive and clear.
Since the rulers of Iran have violated this accord from the very beginning, through interference in the domestic affairs of Iraq, exactly as the Shah did, and because of refusing to return the Iraqi territories. For these reasons, I here announce before you that the Accord of March the 6th, 1975 is terminated on our part too.
إننا نعتبر اتفاقية 6 آذار لعام 1975 ملغاة من جانبنا كذلك.
Iran continued to intensify its violations. All along the borders, Iraqi tanks rolled to regain border areas which Iran had failed to evacuate, following Khomeini's repeated refusals to abide by the Algiers Accord. According to that agreement, Iran had agreed to return to Iraq 6 frontier territories it had encroached upon. In the south, there were 2 small zones in the Mohammerah region. They were completely integrated into the motherland, as were 4 bigger areas in the north, comprising of 353 square kilometers, all of which were located in the Zain al-Quaz and Maymak Valley. On the 28th of September, President Saddam Hussein declared Iraq's readiness to ceasefire. But the Iranian regime, the perpetrator, rejected their call for peace, driven on by feelings of military superiority. Iranian jet fighters get their fuel while in the air. These fighters repeatedly violated Iraq's airspace on Khomeini's orders before the Iraqi Air Force's retaliation on the 22nd of September. Jets take off for a strike deep inside Iranian territories. Their target, Iranian Air Force bases, as well as the major base adjoining Tehran Airport. The aftermath of the Iraqi airstrike. These Phantom jets illustrate the defeat of a once powerful Iranian Air Force. On the 28th of September, the United Nations Security Council convenes in an emergency session. The Iraqi delegate attends. Iran boycotts the international body. The council votes for a ceasefire. But Iran had something else in mind. On the 30th of September, Iran repeats its air raids against Baghdad. Among other civilian and vital targets, they bombed this power station. On the 22nd of September, the Iraqis had to counterattack to protect Iraqi towns from Iranian aggression. Enemy positions and concentrations inside Iranian territory. The first target, Shorin. Iranian enmity and repeated bombardments and air raids, there was only one choice: smash the enemy. Of Mohammerah, once among the biggest trading ports of Iran, today is lifeless. Iranian troops in Mohammerah, and one of Khomeini's mullahs urging them to fight. The Iraqi army is still some way off, so there is an opportunity to take some photographs. Mohammerah is the first big battle in this war, and it turns into the fiercest and the longest in its history. Street fighting, house-to-house fighting in a big city belong to the bloodiest, the most exhausting and the most demanding ways of warfare. It's an enemy city. You don't know the place, and you don't know where the enemy is. There's a danger behind every corner, every door, every window. So every house must be stormed separately, every room, every roof. By the 8th of October 1980, the Iraqis managed to achieve total control over the city of Mohammerah. On the 10th of October, the Battle of Mohammerah is still raging. The Iraqi army carries out its second big operation, crossing the Karun. Advanced units brought over on rafts secure a bridgehead. pontoon bridge, 120 meters long, is built to enable the bulk of the troops to cross the river. Foreign military observers admitted that from the military and technical point of view, the crossing was unique. The next morning, a surprise attack will cut the Abadan-Akhwaz main road, but the operational plan requires more than only building the bridge. In enemy territory, the roads are inadequate. New roads have to be constructed to allow tanks, heavy guns, and equipment to advance. Excavators and bridge parts on the move. After crossing the Karun, the Iraqi army prepares to cross another natural barrier, the Bahamshir River. Pioneer work is tough, straining toil. This region is swampy and confronts the soldiers with a multitude of problems. But in the end, the Iraqis manage to surmount them. The Bahamshir River is no longer a barrier. Abadan is cut off from its main connection to Iran. This operation is not intended to enter Abadan, but to hit it, and to hit it hard. Abadan, once the location of Iran's biggest refinery, turns into an inferno. The United Nations, the non-aligned movement and the Islamic Conference tried again and again to mediate a ceasefire. Iraq always assents to the appeals for peace, but Iran's rulers always reject them. Pakistani President Zia-ul-Haq visits Tehran and meets Bani Sadra. Peace mission failed. Bani Sadra appointed president, Khomeini style. Pro-Bani Sadra demonstration, But political alliances are quickly changing in Iran. Only a little later, other demonstrations against Bani Sadr took to the streets, and he had to flee his master's rage and seek asylum in France. In any case, he was more fortunate than the ex-foreign minister, Zedo, who couldn't escape and was executed. Throughout that period, the intensity of the war increases. These mountains form a natural barrier between Iraq and Iran. They extend up to the Turkish borders. Although these mountains are not suitable for large-scale military operations, the Iranians waged a huge offensive in November 1981 in the areas of Samar and Gilan West, and that offensive did not achieve its goal. Fighters are on their guard, here and everywhere, along the long borders with Iran. The battle continues. Iranians surrender and are taken as prisoners of war. They are transferred away from the battlefield, but thousands of others meet a different fate. For identification purposes, the Iraqis bury the personal papers and identification card in a bottle, along with every dead Iranian soldier. Prayers follow the burial of the dead enemy soldiers. Gunships gain superiority over Iranian troops and assist the Iraqi ground forces. At the Al-Teeb sector, a grand battle takes place. On the 22nd of March 1982, the Iranians launched a large-scale offensive. Here once again prove their ability to stop the offensive and to smash the enemy forces. another battle in which the Iraqis proved worthy of victory, the Iraqi arms striking the enemy. The Iraqi fire does not miss its target. An enemy plane is hit and crashes after a few seconds. Every time. The battlefield littered with burned-out Iranian military hardware. The Iranian offensive has been crushed, and the enemy does not hit its target. Iraqi soldiers recapture a border emplacement occupied by Iranians during the night. Survivors surrender after their defeat. A group of these captured kids, not one older than 15, are taken to Baghdad. Iraq had offered to send them home, since it's not among the principles of the revolution to cause harm to children. But the rulers of Tehran rejected this noble gesture. Obviously, the oil industry was particularly promoted. At this point, Iran is trying its best to strangle Iraq's economy. Iraq was largely dependent on shipping its oil through Shatl Arab and the Arabian Gulf, like the other Gulf countries, which fulfill the greater part of the world's demand for oil. In 1971, the forces of the Shah occupied 3 strategically important islands near the Straits of Hormuz, belonging to the United Arab Emirates. Iraq repeatedly called for the return of these islands to Arab sovereignty. Iran threatens to close the straits and to obstruct navigation in order to paralyze economic life in the West and in non-aligned countries. Since September 1980, Iran has closed Shatl Arab and blocked Iraq's oil exports. Does Iran have the right to complain about Iraqi countermeasures? The island of Hark. This island, as seen before the war, represents the greatest shipping center for Iranian oil. The oil is mainly pumped through pipelines from the oil fields of Al-Atfaz, for tankers to be shipped abroad and to finance the war against Iraq. Iraq's countermeasure to the Iranian blockage of the Iraqi oil exports comprises of successful attacks on the island of Hark, as well as on the tankers heading to or from the island. Meanwhile, in order to avoid pollution of the Arabian Gulf, Iraq has offered an internationally controlled agreement on free exportation of oil to both sides. But again, Iran has rejected this offer. The Iraqi Navy played a heroic role in withstanding the attacks of enemy ships, considering that it is a small force as compared to Iran's big fleet. The Iraqi Navy has had a major and effective role in the sea warfare and proved astonishingly efficient. The Iraqi Marine staff, due to their courage and efficiency, belie the old rule of sea power, which says that if you did not have the stronger fleet, do not fight in the sea. A new aspect discovered by the brave Iraqis on the waters of the sea. Regardless of the withdrawal of all Iraqi forces from Iranian soil, the Iranian army launched 5 big offensives in Basra sector in July 1982. The result was a total defeat for the invaders. Iraq's soil remained unmarked. These expansionist adventures cost the Iranian regime large numbers of dead soldiers, destroyed weapons and artillery. Reinforcements to Misan sector where night battles are raging. Everybody completely at the alert. Artillery officers aim their field guns at enemy targets to eliminate infiltrating groups of Iraqi lines. The big offensive against Misan sector is repulsed, as Tehran announces as usual that it's the last battle. Struggle. A fierce battle is fought in the mountains of Kurdistan. Such mountain regions do not seem suited for large-scale operations. The Iranians infiltrated at night, and their forces faced another crushing defeat that stunned their leaders. The helicopter gunships had a very effective role in this successful operation. Despite the end of the mountain battles, the Iraqis are fully prepared to defend their country and revolution. Participating in the battles of the north were fighters from the autonomous region. They played an effective role in guiding the Iraqi forces to find and eliminate the enemy infiltrators. Still intent on aggression, the Iranians launched a large-scale attack east of Basra, east of Massan, and east of the Tigris sectors in February 1984, declaring the offensive the final attack. Have they achieved any of their evil dreams? Thousands of Iranians were killed in the battle and a great number taken prisoner of war. The result is drawn on the faces of their prisoners of war. They ask, why? The whole world asks, why?